If you're tired of chasing, explaining, and still not being respected, if you feel like the more you talk, the less people listen, if you're exhausted from proving your worth to people who never valued it, we live in a world where everyone is trying to prove something, prove they matter, prove they're right, prove they deserve respect. People talk more than ever, explain themselves endlessly, justify every decision, and beg, quietly or loudly, for validation. And the result? Less respect, less peace, less power. Stoicism stands in direct opposition to this madness. It teaches a simple but uncomfortable truth. The more you chase, the weaker you appear. The more you beg, the less you're valued. The more you explain, the more authority you lose. The Stoic does not chase, does not beg, does not explain. Not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Today, you'll discover 6 deep Stoic truths about disciplined silence. Truths that help you reclaim your inner power, protect your peace, and command respect without raising your voice. If you're ready to stop leaking energy and start standing firm, comment below. My silence is my power. 1. Silence makes them feel your absence. The more you explain, the less they respect you. Being ignored triggers a dangerous instinct. Silence feels like loss, until you understand its power. When someone starts ignoring you, pulling away, or responding with indifference, the first instinct most people feel is panic. Not loud panic, but quiet urgency. A need to fix the situation, to explain what you meant, to clarify your intentions, to send one more message so you're not misunderstood. This reaction feels natural, even reasonable. After all, modern culture teaches you that communication solves everything. But Stoicism reveals a brutal truth. This instinct is precisely what strips you of power. The moment you are ignored and respond by explaining more, you signal that their attention controls your emotional balance. And once that happens, respect begins to erode. The Stoic sees a paradox most people miss. When attention is withdrawn, the strongest move is not pursuit, but calm retreat. Not emotional withdrawal, but energetic withdrawal. You don't disappear in anger. You don't announce boundaries. You simply stop offering yourself to someone who has shown you indifference. This quiet withdrawal creates something rare in modern life: space. And space changes dynamics. When you stop filling every silence, others are forced to feel what your presence once provided. Silence doesn't chase attention. It lets attention come to terms with absence. Look at how this plays out today. A message goes unanswered, so another message follows. Then a longer one. Clarifying tone, clarifying intent, explaining feelings. Maybe a call, then another call. Each attempt feels justified in the moment, but the pattern is unmistakable. The more you reach out, the more your value drops. Not because you lack worth, but because value is inseparable from self-control. People instinctively respect those who can stand still without reassurance. Stoicism never taught indifference to people. It taught mastery over impulse. Marcus Aurelius warned that external approval is a fragile foundation for inner stability. When your peace depends on being acknowledged, you surrender authority over yourself. Silence reverses this exchange. When you choose not to explain yourself to the wrong audience, you reclaim energy. You stop feeding a dynamic that drains you, and that reclaimed energy turns into quiet authority. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. It removes the illusion of control. Speaking gives the temporary sense that you're doing something. Silence forces you to sit with uncertainty. But that discomfort is not danger. It is training. It's the moment where old habits die and discipline forms. And discipline, not reassurance, is the foundation of Stoic strength. When you withdraw calmly, something interesting happens. Some people step forward, not because you chased them, but because they felt the shift. Others vanish completely. Both outcomes are wins. The first reveals genuine respect. The second reveals truth. Silence filters relationships without confrontation. It shows you who valued your presence and who merely enjoyed your availability. This is not manipulation. It's alignment. You stop placing yourself beneath someone else's attention. You stop explaining your worth. You allow reality to respond. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you stop needing external validation to feel whole. Silence is one of the fastest paths to that freedom because it cuts off unnecessary negotiation with people who are never listening in the first place. Here is the action. Today, just once, resist the urge to explain yourself. One message you don't send, one justification you withhold, one call you don't make. Sit with that moment. Notice how much energy returns when you stop giving it away. That energy belongs to you, and when you hold it, your presence carries more weight than any explanation ever could. Remember this principle and let it guide you forward. Silence makes absence felt. 2. Silence helps you hear the truth. Within noise keeps you busy. Silence makes you honest. Most people don't fear silence. They fear what it reveals. When you stop reacting, truth finally speaks. Modern life trains you to react instantly. Notifications, opinions, expectations, and emotional pressure demand a response before you've even had time to think. When something hurts, the reflex is to speak, to defend, to explain your side, to seek reassurance that your feelings are valid. But Stoicism teaches that constant reaction is not strength, it is dependence. And dependence clouds judgment. Silence, on the other hand, creates distance, and distance restores clarity. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop outsourcing your sense of truth. Instead of asking, "Do they understand me?" you begin asking a far more powerful question: "Am I aligned with my values?" This shift is subtle but transformative. The moment you choose silence over reaction, you interrupt emotional momentum. You give yourself space to observe instead of perform. And in that space, uncomfortable realizations surface. Many people fear silence because it removes distractions. Without noise, you're forced to confront what you've been avoiding. You may realize you stayed too long in a situation that drained you. You may see that what you called loyalty was actually fear of being alone, or that what you called love was the need for validation. These truths don't arrive while you're explaining yourself. They arrive when you stop talking long enough to listen. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if you are distressed by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it, and this judgment is something you can revoke at any moment. Silence is how that revocation begins. When you pause instead of reacting, you reclaim authority over interpretation. You stop letting others define what events mean. Think about how often you've spoken just to relieve tension. How many times you explained not because it was necessary, but because silence felt unbearable. That discomfort is not danger. It's information. It's your nervous system recalibrating after years of being conditioned to respond on demand. Silence retrains you to tolerate uncertainty without surrendering dignity. This is why silence feels powerful to others. It signals internal stability. When you don't rush to correct misunderstandings or chase reassurance, people sense that your identity is not fragile. They may not even know why, but they feel it. And more importantly, you feel it. You begin to trust yourself again. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion. It's about not being ruled by it. Silence gives emotion time to settle so reason can speak. When you stop reacting, you start noticing patterns. Who respects your boundaries? Who pressures you to respond? Who grows uneasy when they no longer control your attention? These observations are impossible when you're constantly talking. Here's a simple ritual. The next time you feel triggered, don't respond immediately. Take 3 slow breaths. Name the emotion silently: anger, fear, disappointment. Then ask one question: is speaking right now aligned with my values, or am I seeking relief? If it's the second, remain silent. Write down what you feel instead. Truth becomes clearer when it's not filtered through performance. Silence does not isolate you. It recenters you. It reconnects you to an internal compass that modern noise has weakened. And when you can hear yourself clearly again, you no longer need constant feedback from the outside world. Because the moment you stop reacting, you don't lose your voice. You finally hear it. 3. Begging for closure. Is self-betrayal. Closure is not something others give you. The need for answers can become a form of self-abandonment. Silence ends the cycle that words keep alive. One of the most painful habits people develop is the need for closure from those who hurt them. When respect fades or a relationship ends without explanation, the mind demands answers. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? What changed? And so the cycle begins. You reach out, not to reconnect, but to understand. You tell yourself it's about clarity, healing, or peace. But Stoicism exposes a harsher reality. When you beg for closure from someone who has already withdrawn respect, you hand them the final piece of your dignity. Closure feels noble. It sounds mature, but often it's driven by discomfort with uncertainty. The mind wants a clean ending so it can move on. Yet the Stoics understood that not every ending comes with an explanation, and demanding one from the wrong person deepens the wound. When someone avoids accountability, silence is already an answer, and chasing them for words they refuse to give only reinforces an unequal dynamic. Epictetus warned against placing your well-being in the hands of others. The moment you say, "I can't be at peace until they explain," you give them power over your inner state. That is not healing. That is dependence disguised as resolution. True closure does not come from their understanding. It comes from your acceptance of reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Think about the emotional loop this creates. They pull away. You feel confusion. You ask for clarity. They respond vaguely, or not at all. You feel smaller. You try again, hoping for a different outcome. Each attempt drains you further. Each unanswered message reinforces the belief that something is wrong with you. This is not because you lack worth, but because you're asking the wrong source to validate it. Stoicism teaches a radical alternative. Closure is self-issued. It is the decision to stop negotiating with someone who has already shown you who they are. Marcus Aurelius wrote that people will continue to act according to their nature, and your task is not to change them, but to govern yourself wisely. Silence is the tool that allows that governance. It closes the door without slamming it. When you stop asking for explanations, you regain leverage over your own narrative. You no longer wait for permission to move forward. You don't need their apology, their admission, or their acknowledgement to restore balance. You restore it yourself by withdrawing energy from a conversation that no longer honors you. This is where many people struggle. Silence feels unfinished. It feels like losing, but in truth, silence ends the cycle that words keep alive. Every message extends the story. Every explanation reopens the wound. Silence is not avoidance. It is finality without drama. It says, "I have seen enough." Here is a Stoic decision framework. Ask yourself this: has this person shown consistent respect? If yes, conversation may be worthwhile. If no, silence is already the answer. You don't need confirmation from someone who benefits from your confusion. The absence of effort is clarity. Try this exercise. Write the message you want to send for closure. Say everything, then don't send it. Close the note. That act alone is a reclaiming of power. You chose restraint over relief. And in that restraint, dignity is restored. Stoicism does not promise emotional comfort. It promises strength. And sometimes, strength means walking away without answers, knowing that peace does not require permission from those who refuse to give you respect. Because the moment you stop begging for closure, you stop betraying yourself. 4. Silence reveals. What words are designed to hide words are easy. Patterns are honest. Silence doesn't confuse people, it exposes them. Stop listening to promises. Start watching behavior. Most people trust words far more than they should. Apologies, explanations, intentions, excuses. These things feel reassuring. They sound mature. They create the illusion of resolution. But Stoicism teaches a harder discipline. Never judge people by what they say under pressure. Observe what they consistently do when no one is forcing them to act. Silence is the condition that makes those patterns visible. When you stop talking, stop explaining, and stop reacting, you remove the noise that allows others to hide behind language. Many people use words as camouflage. They promise change, ask for patience, or express confusion to delay accountability. As long as you keep responding, they can keep performing. Silence removes the audience, and without an audience, behavior tells the truth. This is why silence often makes people uncomfortable. Not because it is unclear, but because it is clarifying. When you go quiet, some people step forward with consistency. They check in. They take responsibility. They make effort without being prompted. Others grow irritated, defensive, or disappear entirely. That reaction is not random. It is information. Stoicism urges you to study actions the way a physician studies symptoms. Not emotionally, not personally, but objectively. Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting energy imagining what others think or intend. Instead, he advised watching what they do. Silence gives you the cleanest data possible because it removes your influence from the equation. You are no longer steering the interaction, you're observing it. Think about how many times confusion lingered because you kept engaging. Each explanation gave the other person another chance to speak, justify, or shift blame. Each response blurred the pattern. Silence sharpens it. When you stop reacting, people reveal their priorities. Who respects boundaries, who needs control, who values you, and who valued convenience. This is why Stoic silence is not passive, it is diagnostic. It allows you to see without interference. When someone only reaches out when you initiate, silence reveals imbalance. When respect appears only after confrontation, silence reveals conditional regard. When warmth disappears the moment you stop explaining yourself, silence reveals dependency, not connection. Here is a simple observation exercise. For 7 days, reduce unnecessary responses. No emotional explanations. No follow-ups to unclear behavior. Just calm presence. During this time, notice 3 things: who initiates without pressure, who reacts with irritation, and who fades quietly away. Write it down, not as judgment, but as data. This is how Stoics separate illusion from reality. Many people fear this process because it risks disappointment. But disappointment is cheaper than self-deception. Words can lie without consequence. Patterns cannot. Silence strips interactions down to their truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, restores clarity and control. The modern world encourages endless dialogue to avoid discomfort. Stoicism encourages restraint to reveal truth. When you speak less, you don't lose understanding. You gain insight. You stop negotiating with appearances and start dealing with reality. And here is the deeper realization. Silence doesn't just reveal others. It reveals you. It shows you how often you spoke to maintain connection instead of integrity. How often you explained to avoid loss. How often you accepted confusion instead of choosing clarity. When you stop filling the silence, the fog lifts. Behavior stands alone. And in that stillness, you gain the one thing words can never guarantee: certainty, because in the end, patterns never lie. 5. Not explaining yourself is the highest form of confidence. The need to be understood often comes from fear. True confidence does not demand agreement. You lose power the moment you start defending your peace. Most people explain themselves not because it is necessary, but because being misunderstood feels threatening. From a young age, you're taught that clarity fixes perception, and that if others see your intentions, they'll judge you fairly. But Stoicism challenges this belief at its root. It teaches that the desire to be understood by everyone is not wisdom. It is insecurity disguised as virtue. The moment you feel compelled to defend your choices, emotions, or boundaries to people who have not earned that access, you hand them authority over your inner world. Confidence, in the Stoic sense, is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not argue for legitimacy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to waste time imagining how he appeared in the eyes of others. His focus was alignment between thought, action, and value. When those are in harmony, explanation becomes optional. Silence becomes sufficient. When you stop explaining, something subtle but powerful shifts. You are no longer asking for permission to exist as you are. You are no longer negotiating your standards. You allow misunderstanding to exist without rushing to correct it, and that restraint communicates strength far more clearly than words ever could. People may label you cold, distant, or difficult, but labels are cheap. Self-respect is not. Stoicism does not promise that silence will make everyone like you. In fact, it often does the opposite. Those who benefited from your over-explaining will feel unsettled. Those who relied on your emotional availability without offering respect will call you selfish. This reaction is predictable and irrelevant. Confidence is not the absence of criticism. It is the ability to remain grounded in the presence of it. Consider how often explanations are used as currency. You explain to smooth tension, to maintain access, to prevent conflict, to protect an image. But each time you do, you subtly teach others that your boundaries are flexible, that your peace is negotiable, and that your values can be questioned. Silence breaks that pattern. It draws a quiet line that says, "I am not here to convince you." This is where many people confuse silence with arrogance. But Stoic silence is not about superiority, it is about economy. You conserve words because words are energy. You spend them where they matter. You don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't explain decisions to those who ignore your values. You let your consistency speak instead. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if something is right, do it. If something is true, say it, but do not expect applause. Silence fits perfectly within this ethic. When your actions align with virtue, they do not require commentary. Over time, people adjust. Some rise to meet your standard, others fall away. Both outcomes simplify your life. Here is a practical discipline. The next time someone questions your boundary or decision without respect, resist the urge to justify it. Offer a simple statement or none at all. Let the discomfort pass. Observe how quickly confidence returns when you stop performing for understanding. Silence does not make you invisible. It makes you unmistakable. It signals that your sense of self is internally sourced, not crowdsourced, and that internal stability, quiet, firm, unyielding, is what people instinctively recognize as authority, because the strongest individuals are not those who explain themselves endlessly. They are the ones who know when explanation is unnecessary. 6. Leaving in silence is the lesson they remember. You don't need an explanation to leave. The quiet exit speaks louder than confrontation. Distance is a language mature people understand. Most people believe that leaving requires an announcement, a final conversation, a dramatic confrontation, a long explanation that justifies why they're done. This belief keeps them trapped far longer than necessary. Stoicism teaches something far simpler and far more powerful. When a situation consistently violates your values, you don't owe it closure. You owe yourself distance. And distance, when chosen calmly, becomes the clearest message of all. A silent exit is not avoidance. It is resolution without spectacle. It is the refusal to turn your boundaries into a debate. When you leave quietly, you deny dysfunction the attention it feeds on. You don't argue, you don't defend. You don't circle back for validation. You simply stop participating. That restraint leaves a deeper impression than any speech ever could. Think about how people react to confrontation. They prepare defenses. They rewrite history. They justify their behavior. But when you leave without explanation, there is nothing to argue against. The absence itself becomes the mirror. Seneca warned that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. A silent departure forces others to sit with their own thoughts, not yours. This is why silence is remembered. Loud exits are emotional and forgettable. Quiet exits linger. They prompt reflection. People may not admit it, but they replay the moment access was removed. They notice the boundary after it's enforced, not while it's being negotiated. Silence delivers the lesson without hostility. Stoicism emphasizes detachment, not indifference, but clarity. You detach from outcomes you cannot control and focus on the only thing you can: your response. Leaving in silence is the ultimate exercise of that principle. You are not trying to punish or teach. You are choosing peace over performance, and that choice reshapes your identity. There is a discipline to this. A three-part Stoic exit. First, no reaction. You stop responding emotionally. Second, no justification. You don't explain why you're stepping back. Third, no checking back. You don't monitor how your absence is received. Each step strengthens self-trust. Each step reduces dependency on external approval. Many people fear that leaving quietly means losing the last word, but Stoicism reframes this entirely. Silence is the last word. It ends the conversation without prolonging conflict. It closes the door without slamming it, and it preserves dignity on both sides. When you practice this, something changes internally. You stop measuring your worth by how others respond. You stop needing to be seen as reasonable, kind, or right. You become anchored. And anchored people move differently. They don't rush. They don't plead. They don't look back. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that you can leave life right now. So let that determine what you do and say and think. If that is true, then unnecessary arguments, prolonged explanations, and dramatic exits are all distractions from what matters. Living in accordance with your values. Here is the practice. Identify one situation where you've been explaining yourself too much. Reduce contact without commentary. No announcement, no emotional residue, just space. Notice how quickly peace returns when you stop trying to manage perceptions. Some will learn from your silence. Others won't. That is not your concern. The lesson is not for them. It is for you. Because when you can walk away quietly without resentment or performance, you demonstrate the highest level of Stoic strength. You don't need to say you're done. You simply are. 7. The 7-day ritual of disciplined silence. Silence becomes power only when it is practiced. Discipline turns restraint into authority. This is not theory, this is training. Silence is not a personality trait, it is a skill. And like any skill, it must be trained deliberately. Many people try silence once, feel uncomfortable, and abandon it. They mistake discomfort for failure. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Discomfort is the signal that training has begun. To transform silence from avoidance into authority, you need structure. That structure is ritual. Day 1 begins with awareness. Audit your silence. Notice where you explain too much, justify unnecessarily, or react impulsively. Pay attention to moments when you feel the urge to speak just to relieve tension. You're not changing anything yet. You're simply observing. Stoics believed self-mastery starts with accurate self-perception. Day 2 is about boundaries. Prepare 3 short sentences you can use without explanation. Simple, calm, and final. I'm not available for that. I've decided to handle it differently. That doesn't work for me. No elaboration. These phrases are not weapons. They are shields. They protect energy. Day 3 introduces restraint. For 24 hours, practice non-reaction. This doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities. It means delaying emotional responses. No immediate replies to messages that trigger you. No defending your position. Let the nervous system settle before you decide if words are even necessary. Most of the time, they aren't. Day 4 is observation. Keep a simple log. When you reduce reactions, who steps forward? Who becomes irritated? Who disappears? Write it down. Not with judgment, but with clarity. Stoicism values truth over comfort, and silence reveals patterns faster than conversation ever could. Day 5 is closure without contact. Write a letter to someone you feel tempted to explain yourself to. Say everything, then do not send it. This act is not suppression, it is redirection. You are releasing emotion without surrendering dignity. You are proving to yourself that peace does not require their participation. Day 6 is energy recovery. Identify 5 places where your attention leaks. Unnecessary conversations, social media arguments, emotional labor, people who demand explanations without offering respect. Quietly reduce exposure. No announcements, no justifications. Energy reclaimed becomes strength restored. Day 7 is commitment. Write a single sentence that defines how you will move forward. A value oath. Something like, I choose peace over performance, or I do not explain myself to those who disrespect me. Read it every morning. This is your internal compass. Throughout this ritual, one principle guides you. Silence is not withdrawal from life. It is engagement on your terms. Each day you practice restraint. You reinforce self-trust. Each moment you resist unnecessary explanation. You strengthen authority. By the end of 7 days, something shifts. You speak less, but with more weight. You react slower, but with greater clarity. You no longer feel the urge to convince, and people feel it. Not because you told them, but because your energy changed. This is Stoic silence, disciplined, intentional, grounded. And it can be summarized in one sentence you should carry with you every day. My silence is my power. You don't need to be louder to be powerful. You don't need the last word to win. Silence is not emptiness, it is mastery. Today, you learned a truth most people never practice. Not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. You learned that chasing drains power, begging weakens position, explaining to the wrong people erodes dignity. Stoicism was never about making life easier. It was about making you stronger. When you stop reacting, stop negotiating your worth, and stop explaining your boundaries, something profound happens. Your energy stabilizes, your presence gains weight, and your peace no longer depends on anyone else's response. This is what disciplined silence gives you, not isolation, but control. Not coldness, but clarity. Not fear, but authority. Some people will respect you more, others will drift away. Let both happen. Your task is not to manage perceptions, but to live in alignment with your values. Remember, you don't need to announce your strength. You demonstrate it by what you refuse to do. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Which part challenged you the most? And if you're ready to live with quiet strength in a loud world, write this below, commit to it, and carry it forward. My silence is my power.